Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with garlic Parmesan dinner rolls. So you know what the problem with this recipe is? It actually looks too awesome. I know it doesn't sound like a big problem, and I'll explain later, but for now, let me show you how to start this surprisingly simple and really delicious dinner roll. So here we go. Into a mixing bowl, we're going to add some yeast, some flour, and some warm water. And basically what we're making here is kind of a thin sponge. And all a sponge is just giving the yeast a little head start so it gets a nice chance to start growing before the rest of the ingredients are introduced. And I almost forgot, I like to put a little bit of sugar into the sponge. Yeast likes to eat sugar. Who doesn't? All right, I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to cover this. I just happen to have a piece of foil handy. You could use a towel, of course. And I'm going to put that in a warm spot, 70, 75 degrees, something like that. I'm going to set that in a warm spot for about 15, 20 minutes, after which it's going to look like this. Have I mentioned lately that making bread is super fun? So if you've never done it, well, why not? Come on. All right, at that point, into the sponge, we're going to add some salt, some olive oil, and believe it or not, an egg. And that egg is just going to add a little bit of richness. All right, so I'm going to mix that in thoroughly. And then, oh yeah, we need some flour. And yes, this is a no-knead dough, which should be great news for you non-kneaders. So I'm going to dump in my flour. I'm going to use my rounded wooden spoon. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stir that flour in. And it may be enough, it may not be enough. I want you to stir and stir and stir. And there should be enough flour in there where you're going to form a very, very sticky lump of dough. It should just barely pull away from the sides like that. So just keep stirring and only add enough flour if it won't pull away from the sides. And then you're fine for the next step, which is the rising. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cover this with a damp towel. So this is going to go back in that proverbial warm spot for about an hour to an hour and a half until it basically doubles in size or more. So for me, an hour and 15 minutes later, this is what it looked like. So gorgeous, so beautiful, just so supple and filled with gas. All right, we're going to take a big spatula and just knock all the air out of this. Just scrape down the sides. And what you're going to do is you're going to scrape this right onto a well-floured work surface. Generously flour your cutting board, scrape the dough down, and then generously flour the top of the dough. And then with your fingers, you're just going to kind of pat it down and stretch it into a very rough rectangular shape. Something like that. All right, once I've accomplished that, I'm going to take a rolling pin and continue rolling this a little thinner. I want it to be about a ½ inch thick. And again, I want to keep it into a general rectangular shape. So once our dough is rolled out, we're going to go ahead and add the fillings, which are, as the title gave away, garlic and Parmesan mostly. So I'm going to take a crushed garlic clove or two, up to you, and you can just put that right on the dough straight, although I like to mix it in a little bit of butter or olive oil, or both, and then spread it on. And you're probably thinking, that looks like more than 1 or 2 garlic cloves. It might have been a little more, but like I said, use how much you want. All right, after the garlic spreadage, we are going to the cheese sprinklage, which is going to be real Reggiano Parmesan. Please do not use the fake cheese. I say that every time, but it really is a tremendous difference. All right, after the cheese, I'm going to put a little bit of seasoning. You're not going to need any salt, but I'm going to do a little black pepper, a little bit of paprika and or cayenne. I'm not going to confirm or deny I use cayenne. And last but not least, a generous sprinkling of freshly chopped Italian parsley. And that's it for the filling. Next, I'm going to take one finger and I'm going to go down the edge, pressing down like that. That's going to help us seal this when we roll it. Now, it's probably sticky enough to seal anyway, but I'm going to paint a little bit of water on it just to be sure. All right, just barely damp. You don't want it wet. And then from the opposite end, I want you to slowly start rolling, just like you're rolling a big old burrito. Not too tight. We don't want any big air pockets in the middle, but we don't want to smush everything either. All right, so once that's rolled up, we want to end up with the seam at the bottom. That just makes sense. And then we're going to cut it in half, and then each half into 4. Now, I do like to trim off the last ½ inch or so, because that's pretty much all dough. So I do that, and then like I said, each half gets cut into 4 pieces. So if my math is correct, this is going to give you 8 dinner rolls altogether. And we're going to place those on a lined baking sheet, cut side up. All right. Next, you're going to take scissors and you're going to make a nice deep cut into the top of each one of these. Some might already be open, but it doesn't matter. I don't want them a little open. I want a giant gaping gash. So after we cut the centers like that, we're going to go ahead and paint a little bit more oil or butter on the top. Now I had enough in my little container where I had my minced garlic to brush these. If you don't, just a few drops of oil on your pastry brush will be fine. All right, after those are lightly lubricated, we're going to go ahead and sprinkle some more Parmesan on top, a couple teaspoons on each. And then, before these are baked, we have to proof them, which means give them a little pre-baking rise. So they're going to go back into my oven. Again, not on, just the lights on. And those are going to sit there for 20 to 30 minutes, after which they're going to look like this. Kind of puffy. Those are ready to bake. So you're going to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And you're going to bake these for about 20 minutes. And I promise you, after 20 minutes, you're going to be looking at some pretty gorgeous rolls. All right, as soon as they come out of the oven, you know I like to get these on a rack to cool. And that is it. Are those gorgeous or what? And that's the problem. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these look so amazing that people think they're going to be more than what they are, which is just a nice dinner roll. When you pull back that napkin in the bread basket and these beauties are revealed, try to manage expectations, all right? Anyway, other than that, they're fantastic. Now, to be completely honest, and I always am with you people, I cooked mine for 25 minutes and they were a little dry. In fact, some of you astute bakers, as I break this open, you can see that grain is just a hair on the dry side. So 25 minutes was a little too long, so check yours at 20 minutes, they should be fine. Anyway, yes, there's a few steps, but none of them are hard. So I hope you give that a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more information as usual. And as always, enjoy.